In this element 3, I'm going to deliberate also on the manual operate loading handling equipment. What are the precautions for using this equipment? These are equipment that you can use that can help you in moving one item from one place to another, or shifting one item from one place to another, right? Machine that you can use, or equipment that you can use with your hand, right? I'm going to talk about the precaution for safety use, which include number one, you have to avoidance of uneven grounds and slopes, right? So this simply means that when you are using this machine, this equipment like a trolley, you have to avoid a road or a pathway which is very rough, right? Because if the pathway is very rough, it can lead to accidents also, and the equipment or items that you have in the trolley might be very might damage. So another point, number 2, the precautions, we're talking about use of ramp over the step, right? So whenever you have a trolleys or you have equipment that you're using to shift one item to another place, you have to use a ramp. What is a ramp? A ramp, like most houses or most offices, they have a place wherein people who are disabled, they can use this way. A ramp have a iron, right? So wherein you can hold the iron while you are moving, at least for your little weight to be on the iron, right? So in case of you want to fall down, you will hold the iron, you understand? But it's a very slope. It looks like a step, but it's not a step. For it, it's a slope, right? Then step have a stairs, you understand? But this one is very sloopy, right? So these are ramps. You should always try to use the ramp area to deliver items or to move one item to your cars or any facility. Use the ramp rather than using the staircase, because the stairs, a trolley cannot go through the staircase, right? Then another precautions also, number 3, you have to observing the safe working loading limits of the truck, right? So whatever things that you have in these handheld machines, right, in this equipment like trolley, you have to minimize the packing system, right? So you don't need to overload it. If you overload it, it might also accidents might occur. So we are looking at the precaution, the preservative or preventive measures, right? So you don't need to overload it, right? You have to have a specific limit if you are using trolleys like that. So another precaution, which is point number 4, say securing the load if necessary, right? So this simply means that if you are using a trolley, right, you know that these items, there are many in the load, or they are very important also, you can use a line, right? Or you try to tie the items that you have in the trolley, so for it to be on a stable position, right? So you have to like tie in it, you know. Then also, that is one way of securing it. Then also you can put nets over it to wrap it, a net. So you tie the net in the trolley so it cannot fall down, right? Then also we're talking about point number 6 is using the brake, right? If there is a brake wherever the truck is station, you have to use a brake. Or if you don't have a brake, you can even put something like a shield right on the tire of the trolley. You can use this one also, right? Then we're talking about safe parking and storage to avoid obstruction. These are also safety precautions, right? So anywhere that you are using like a forklift or any equipment, you have to have a parking station where you can pack these items. In other ways, where you can pack this machine, in other way to avoid accidents also, right? Then point number 7, you have to check the brake also, is another point, right? Like this forklifting machine also. Then point number 8, you have to talk about care when moving the load, you know. So you have to talk about this care. This care also is very necessary, how you can take care of this equipment, right? So you have to service the tire, you service it most of a while, right? So you have to service this one. Then we're talking about safe parking and storage. Okay, we're talking about route inspections and maintenance. So whatever equipment you have, which is lifting, manual operating lifting equipment, you have to do random surveillance, you have to do random maintenance, right? Let's say like a forklifting, a crane, a trolley, bigger trolley, you understand? You have to do random maintenance, right? In order way to avoid accidents, right? Then also we're talking about using of safety shoe or boots to avoid crush of injury, right? So when you are using this equipment, right, these manual lifting machines, so you have to use equipment, right? Like safety boots, because maybe your leg or another person, your leg might also be at a risk, right? So you have to consider all of these factors. These are safety precautions in manual operating loading handheld equipment, right? These are safety precautions. Like let me go over it again, right? You have to avoid on uneven ground and sloopy area. They have to use the ramp or over the step, right? Don't use the step, use the ramp. Then you have to observe the safety working load limits of the truck, that you have to assess the load that you are carrying in this equipment. They have to secure a loading area, right? So you have to have a specific place where you are loading your equipment, right? If you are loading any item, you have to have specific place, right, in order way to avoid the interference of a passerby, right? Then care, you have to take care of this load, right? Then safety, you have to know where to park it. Then the route inspection, you have to do routine inspection and maintenance. You have to use safety boots, right? Then I'm proceeding further to talk about the power loading handheld machine. Power and loading machine. What are power and loading handheld equipment? Each type of equipment will present its own hazard, that is own risks and hazard. Yeah, we can see on the table that I'm going to explain. General hazard associated with power lifting device include like a device which are using powers, electrical powers that have more power. People can use that one. It can consume, you don't need to use human being power, not that much needed, only to control. They do only more of the power work. Those are the machine I'm talking about. Number one, we're talking about mechanical failure, right? Some of these machines sometimes have mechanical failure. So those are the hazard, those big machine they're facing, also mechanical hazard. Then they also have overloading, right? Overloading problem. Then collision with pedestrian or vehicle or structure, right? So sometimes accidents can occur. The movements of this equipment, this power machine, collide with pedestrian. Pedestrian mean people, you understand? Because people are the one who's supposed to think and take action. This machine, they're only controlled by human being, right? Then also fall of material on a person, right? So let's say like most of this higher forklifting, if it's not managed well, they carry items up, right, to put into another place. Sometimes it might fall on someone. So that's why they said nobody should be under this forklifting or this crane machine, right? Then we're talking about noise. So this machine also, they all have noise. Most of them have noise, and those noise are very irritating, and it can also damage your ears, right? So those are hazard. Then you're talking about contact with moved parts or crushing hazard, right? So also they can contact with moving parts or crush hazard. If they step on anything, they can crush or damage it, because they are very heavy machine, and also their irons is more harder, right? Then also smoke and dust and flame from the exhaust pipe, you understand. So also these things, the machine also, because of they are using fire, they are using fuel, you understand, because of the power they can produce pollution, right? Then also talking about fire and explosion with when refuel, right? So when you are refuel this machine, this handheld equipment, this power big machine can lead to fire also, right? Then also I'm going to proceed forward and talking about the tables, right? These tables of manual handheld materials is also talking about the device hazard, and also the control measures, right? So I'm going to highlight machines, the machines and the hazard, and also how to control the measures, right? First of all, we're talking about the forklift truck, right? Forklift truck, what are the hazard, right? The risks that involve in forklift. Number one, we're talking about overturning and striking of pedestrian, right? So the hazard that involves, sometimes this it can step on someone, right? If a person is the operator is driving this forklift, also if it can step on someone, it can damage someone's leg, you understand. So those are the hazard it can also cause. Then also it can cause unable to load or drive when raising a load. So this simply means that it can also it cannot able to ride when it's carrying a load, right? So it only stays only one function it can do at one time, you understand. Then we're talking about the control measures. What are the control measures for a forklift, right? One of the control measure is operator train, right? So operator need to be trained and certified, you understand. Then number two, daily check and maintenance by a competent person. So this simply means that all the forklifting, they should have people who should check it or inspect it whether they are okay, right? Maintenance also. Then point number three in the control measure, we have to talk about no overloading, right? So when someone is using a forklift, an operator, you should not overload that forklift, right? So these are the safety measures. Then also point number four is observing the site rules, right? In every site there should be rules and regulation when you are driving this forklift. So this is very important, right? Then another device also we are talking about is like conveyor, right? Or belt or roller or screws, right? This equipment. What are the hazards? These screws or belts or roller, what are the hazards they can cause, right? Then one of the hazard is drawing in a point in running nip, right? Then enlargements and contact with moving parts such as in the screw conveyor. Then also the falling of material from convoy, right? So convoy also, sometimes equipment can also fall down, right, when there is a convoy. Then what are the control measures? We're talking about the control measure is by use of guard and train of operator. This operator also should be trained. So this also the operator, when you are trained, you can avoid all of these accidents, all of these risks, you understand, or hazard. Then we are talking now, I'm going to highlight another device which called mobile or tower crane, right? Mobile or tower cranes, what are the hazards, the risks or the accident that can occur? I'm going to talk about 3 points. Number one is on uneven ground and also high wind causes a crane to tumble, right? So this simply means that an hazard can occur during weather time, high weather, when there is a wind. Also let's say the forklift or the mobile crane lifts something up, because of the winds also it can also disturb, right, a wingering or swinging from one place to another also. So this is an hazard. Then number two, also we're talking about the harm or load strike. strike, sometimes while it's moving, right? So the strike also can also cause problem. Then another hazard also, driving with a suspend load, right? So when a forklift is also driving with a mobile tower, a mobile or a tower crane is driving with a suspended load, also it can also lead to accident also. Then what are the control measures of a mobile tower crane? What are the control measures? We're talking about the control measure. I'm going to mention three points. Number one, you have to use of correct crane and train and competent operator, right? So all of these points, you have to have competent operator. So you have to be certified. You have to be licensed. So when you are licensed person, you will know that these are the rules and regulations of forklifting. These are the steps or the operating procedures that you're supposed to use, right? Then number two, they have to be regular inspection, which is the most important thing. Regular inspections and also maintaining the competence of the person, right? Then also they have to check using of fail-safe device, right? So for example, also they have to check whether the brakes of these mobile cranes or the wincher, right? Like when a crane lifts something up, right? So it has to also check those machines, the stability of these machines, right? Because if failures to attach or to clip something for a very long time can also lead to accident also, right? So these are the control measures of forklifting and conveying or belt roller conveyor, right? And also mobile or tower crane. So these are the control measures to prevent accidents also, because you that are using all this equipment also, you can be prone to accidents, and people that are moving around also can also be a victim or vulnerable, right? So there have to be a safety area wherein you are doing your operation. Then I'm going to talk about another point, talking about requirements for safe lifting operation. When you are doing safe lifting operation, what are the requirements? What are the requirements that you're supposed to have, right? So looking at the requirements, I'm going to mention about 9 points. Number one, you have to ensure that the crane lifting device is of the correct type for the job and timing, right? Terrain. You have to make sure that this crane is also lift the device of the correct type, right? Then number two, you have to ensure that the load to be lifted is within the safe limit, the safe lifting capacity of the crane. So this simply means that whenever you are lifting, they call it lift plan, right? You have to check the tons of this crane machine. So the crane machine also should be more heavier than this equipment that is going to carry, right? So even if it carry these items also, you're looking at the position also of the crane is also necessary. The position of the crane also, if it's the same load, if it's the machine is more heavier also, the crane machine is more heavier, then the load also is not heavy, but because of the distance by which it's supposed to collect the items, the more the distance long, the more the crane power reduce, right? So these are also, you have to take these things into consideration. Then point number three, you have to carefully set the crane on even or a stable ground in a safe position away from the structure or overhead that might also be stuck. So this simply means that whenever you are doing crane lift, you have to look at the surrounding, whether there is a house, whether there is a pole, right? So for accident not to occur around, right? Then the ground also must be stable and strong, right? Because sometimes if you put in a ground where the ground is not strong, this crane might also have the tendency to slide one part, right? The floor might damage. So you have to look at the temperature. You have to look at the thickness or the firmness of the the ground where you are placing this crane machine. Then we're talking about point number 4, using a outrigging correctly, right? So when you are using this outrigging, you should use it correctly, right? Then also point number 5, you have to check that the crane has been properly maintained. So this crane also needs to be checked most of the time, whether it be properly maintained. Then the chains that are there also need to check these chains, right? If they are also certified, or they are strong, or they are still, there is no crack on it, right? Then you have to number 6 also, number 5 talking about, number 6 talking about restricting the use of the crane train and competence operator only. So this simply means you have to use people that are more competent, or person that is more competent should operate on this machine, or the person that is very authorized to use this one, not to use different people to operate this machine, because the idea that someone have in this machine also, it can help the person to know the structure of this machine, when and how, right? Yeah. Then also point number 8, number 7 talk about ensure that each lift is planned and supervised by a competent person, and that the driver and the slinger are competent, right? So you have to make sure that everything in the forklift also should also be accurate, and also you have to verify, you check the safety, right? Then we're talking about point number 9. You have to provide a bankman. Who is a bankman? Person who can give direction also. You have to provide this trained person that can give direction also. Then in point number 10, you have to ensure that the safety devices are operational and are used correctly. So all safety device that you have around or on the crane should also be accurate. Then point number 12, you have to check that there are no obstruction, right, or the visibility, the vicinity of this lift. So every vicinity around should also be free from pedestrian, from building, for any obstruction, right? Then also you have to check for weather condition, right? So whenever you are doing a crane lift, right, you have to check for the weather. If the weather is very harsh, there is a windy weather, is the tendency that this equipment that you are going to carry also might be affected by weather conditions, right? So you have to take that one also into consideration, right? Then point number 14, we're talking about the lifting and closing to the ground as possible. Never lift the load directly or over a person. So this simply means that when in 14 point, whenever you are lifting an item, you don't have to lift it above someone's head, right? So no one should be under that equipment. Then point number 15, every people that are around should use the PPP, right? These are personal protective equipment, like the masks, gloves, and elements they should use, right? Then 15 talk about using the sign to warn or the operation, right? So these are the signs that you should use. You should have a specific signs to give directions, right, of the operators and people that are around, to give signs that here is lockdown, don't use this way, use this way, and we are lifting this way. So there should be also sign. Then I'm going to talk about the requirements for periodical examination of lifting equipment. What are the requirements for periodical examination of a lift equipment? A thorough examination should also be conducted by a competent person or a professional person with the experience and knowledge and the skill to assess the condition of a particular equipment, right? So you should have a person who should do inspection on all of these equipments, right? It should be a well-certified person, right, who have experience in equipment, because here we are talking about safety of lives and property, right? also. Then we're talking about, in general, lifting equipment should also be thoroughly examined. So they have to examine this equipment. So how they can examine this crane? Before they use this crane, it should be also, first time they should also inspect it, unless as an in-date certificate of thoroughly examination from the manufacturer or previous owner. So they have to check all those documents, right, by the manufacturer, which company, whether it's a good company. Then point number 2, before it can be used for the first time, where the way that it has been installed when make a difference. It's also strength and stability, right? So also need to be check the stability. Everything need to check before start operation, right? Then periodically, right? They need to check this one periodically. The person every 3 months, 6 months. It depends, right? Need to check this machine by a well certified and experienced person. Then point number 4. A requirement for the examination for lifts equipment. Point number 4 says that after an event that may has affected its strength and stability, it also needs to be checked. Sometimes you do lot of work, this crane lift or this machine, you know that this machine have been overloaded or overused some certain day, so they have to also check, right, that this machine is still okay, not to wait for the time that they're supposed to do inspection also, right? Then also, we're talking about the frequency of periodically, thoroughly examination will be typically every 12 months, where it is not used to carry a person, right? So every 12 months, then every 6 months, where it is used to carry people, right? Then every 6 months for lift accessories, right? So every 6 months also need to be checked, right? So I stop here to conceptualize all these ones are procedures, how the safety precautions of handling lifting equipment, and how the precaution for cranes, and how you are going to operate crane, how to check whether these cranes are authentic, they are good, what are the procedures, what are the measures. So in all of this topic is to understand the full concept of lifting equipment, right? So every equipment, lifting equipment like trolleys, jack tools, and forklifts and cranes, what are the safety measures, right? So these are the ones that I've explained. So thank you very much. I stop here and I will proceed to the next topic.